Good day, everyone, and welcome to our presentation entitled Fidelity Levels in Wireframing, which is assigned to Group 1 of BS Info for Ramad 2 for the course ITST 306. For the quick overview of this presentation, so we have the block diagram, gray boxes, followed by high fidelity text, then a high fidelity color, high fidelity media, high fidelity interaction, which is connected to the block diagram or wireframing. And also we have the following types of wireframes such as the basic wireframes, annotated wireframes with user overflows, and lastly is click-through wireframes. So now is we have the following members of the group. So it is composed of Alfha, Cyries, Bitong, yours truly, Visalini Cristal, Kendrick, Macky, Lucido, followed by Gian, Jethro, Masa, James Paul B. Salonga, and lastly, Mary Jorine A. Tubiera. So let's start with a quick introduction on what is fidelity is. So fidelity levels describe or emphasize the amount of detail and realism applied to wireframes throughout the design process, meaning that there are different fidelity types that we should be applied according to specific purpose to accomplish the wireframe tasks in our project or in designing phase. Then, they allow designers and stakeholders to communicate ideas clearly by adjusting how conceptual or detailed a wireframe should be. Meaning that in this fidelity levels, it allows the designers or enables the designer to communicate by choosing a certain fidelity levels based on the overview that I said earlier to control the designing phase of the wireframe to be a conceptual or the detailed one. And lastly, for the introduction is choosing the appropriate fidelity, improves collaboration, reduces confusion, and supports a smoother transition into the development. Meaning that once we choose or select the appropriate or suitable fidelity, it improves collaboration, meaning that if you are a team of designers, once that you are with suitable fidelity levels, it avoids confusion and support transition to better designing phase in the earlier stage. Then now, let's proceed to the first overview that I said earlier, which is the block diagrams. So here the block diagrams is it presents the foundation structure of interfaces in simplified rectangular shapes. Meaning for the world itself, block diagrams, it utilizes a rectangular shape, meaning that you are placing a blocks in a certain design or in the earlier part of design process that defines the structure of your interface or your project. Then they are highly useful in early stage phase because they establish information hierarchy and layout organization before any aesthetic decisions are made. Meaning they're useful since it guides the designers or the UI UX designers on which the following interfaces or elements are being placed in the system so that it avoids confusion. Then, by adhering to consistent grid systems and spatial alignment, block diagrams support clarity and promote coherent layout planning. Meaning that once you utilize a block diagram, it gives you a suitable insight on how the organization of the information, the following elements in the system, even it is not it has no design yet, and it has only the structure. Then, followed by that, this diagram emphasizes spatial arrangement by mapping out where primary elements will be eventually positioned. Meaning that if you are a designer, you should firstly utilize the structure so that it can easily be utilized or used by the other designers and collaborate with others. Then designers utilize block diagrams to validate structural decisions and ensure that interface support logical navigational pattern. Meaning that if you utilize the block diagrams, you will see the pattern in this and you will see the earlier problems in regarding the structure of your interface. And lastly, this level of fidelity minimizes distraction by removing stylistical details, allowing design to focus solely on placement and usability. Meaning, since it has no designs yet or like colors, typography, and etc., meaning that it tells the designers to focus on the placement of the following positions in the certain web page or in the mobile page depending on the purpose of the system or interface. So now, here's the quick example of the block diagram. So as you can see, it has the box here. So as you can see, it shows the organizational patterns of the elements and the information here. And also, as you can see, it gets the designers on the implementation in the designer phase on how to implement those designs and adjust it later depending on the situation.
Gray boxes. Gray box wireframes use grayscale shapes and neutral tones to depict layout, enabling designers to analyze spacing and composition without the influence of color or imagery. This representation helps eliminate unnecessary visual noise, ensuring that attention is directed toward core structural. As a result, teams can assess visual balance, content prioritization, and user flow at an early stage. Gray boxes use a restrained visual style to help designers prioritize proportions, alignment, and component relationships. They are ideal for media-heavy designs, acting as temporary substitutes for images and videos. By delaying stylistic details, gray boxes prevent clutter and ensure design decisions are based purely on functional layout. Next is high-fidelity text. High-fidelity text involves the use of real or near final written content, which enhances the accuracy of layout testing. This level conveys typographic hierarchy through variations in font size, weight, spacing, and formatting, resulting in a more realistic draft of the interface. Such details allows designers to evaluate readability, information density, and linguistic clarity. The inclusion of authentic text enables teams to anticipate potential issues related to overflow, truncation, or inconsistent messaging across the interface. It also ensures that labels, descriptions, and instructional content align with functional requirements. By integrating meaningful text early, the design process becomes more cohesive between content writers, designers, and developers.
High-fidelity color. High-fidelity color introduces purposes use of color schemes to empathize interface elements, guide user attention, and reinforce visual hierarchy. Color application enhances the interpretability of interactive components such as buttons, alerts, and navigation cues. These fidelity levels help stakeholders evaluate the psychological and perceptual efforts of color choices on user engagement and accessibility. Colors should be used carefully to avoid miscommunication or the assumption that the design is already final. Too much or inconsistent color can distract stakeholders from focusing on functionality. At this fidelity level, the goal is to maintain clarity, emphasize key interaction, and offer early hints of branding without finalizing the visual design. Let's go to the high-fidelity media. High-fidelity media uses realistic images, illustration, or placeholder videos to show how content occupies the final layout. It highlights visual intensity, helping teams understand hierarchy, attention, and cognitive load. This approach is especially useful for interfaces rich in imagery, such as catalogs for photos portfolios, or on educational platforms. Contextual media lets stakeholders visualize the system, final appearance, and assesses if visual support kitas. It aids testing of image sizing, cropping, responsive layout, and content prominence. This fidelity adds realism while maintaining flexibility for adjustment before full production.
So high fidelity interaction. High fidelity interaction warframes simulate behaviors like tapping, clicking, scrolling, and menu interactions. So they show how users move between screen and interact with elements, clarifying system behavior. By mapping these paths, the design becomes intuitive and sets the stage for interactive prototypes. So what this basically means is that high fidelity interaction make the prototype feel more real, and you can actually tap, click, and scroll so you can see how users would move through the app in a natural way. So it helps us understand if the flow makes sense before fully building the product. So this level anticipates usability issues by detailing transitions, feedback, and conditional behaviors. It communicates precisely to developers how elements should respond to user input. Detailed interaction mapping enables early evaluation of user experience and functional requirements. So, in short, this level gives us a clear picture of how every element should react to the user because transition and feedback are detailed. So, we can spot usability issues early. So, it also helps developer know exactly what behavior to implement. So basic warframes show the general layout and structure of a product without detailed content or styling. They are useful for quickly visualizing concepts and establishing the foundation for development or design. This level is sufficient when designers are prototyping themselves or when minor updates are already documented elsewhere. So it simply means basic warframes focus on structure only. No colors, no styling, just the layout. It's great for quickly mapping out ideas and making sure the overall page setup works before adding visuals and details. Next is basic warframe support initial planning by focusing on placement of elements and overall structure. They allowed experienced designer or developers to interpret and refine the layout with minimal guidance. This approach prevents unnecessary detail from slowing early stages of design process. So basically, basic warframe are like skeleton of a design. They help us plan out where everything goes without worrying about the details yet. So it gives designer and developers just enough structure to understand the layout and refine it without getting slowed down by too much information early on. So this is what a basic warframe usually look like. It's super simple, just boxes and labels. The point is just to show placement, where the headline goes, where the stories are, where the ad sits, and so on. So it's basically a quick sketch that gives the team a visual idea before creating more detailed design.
So, good day everyone. For this slide, I will explain the annotated wireframes. This is the basic wireframe support initial planning by focusing on placement of elements and overall structure. They allowed experienced designer or developers to interpret and refine the layout with minimal guidelines. This approach prevents unnecessary detail from slowing early stages of design process. Annotated wireframes are simple, low-detailed wireframes used in the early stage of planning. This purpose is to focus on the placement of the element and the overall structure of the interface. Because they are basics, designers and developers can easily interpret and improve the layout even with minimal instruction. This approach also prevents unnecessary details from slowing down the early design process, allowing the team to work more efficiently. Next is they can describe conditional behaviors, error handling, or dynamic content changes within the interface. Annota- Annotations also support collaboration by documenting decision and reducing misinterpretation. This allows team to refine design elements systematically before moving to high fidelity or interactive prototypes. Um, Things like conditional actions, error handling, and dynamic content changes, basically what the interface does in the different situation. Annotations also help with collaboration because they clearly document design decision. This reduces misinterpretations and allow the team to refine elements systematically before moving the mo- to high fidelity or the interactive prototypes that we use. As you can see on this slide 3 is the example of an annotated wireframes. We can see the layout of the web page with numbered indicators around the design. Each number represents a specific annotations explaining what each section does, such as navigation, hero section, or product grid. This helps the development team quickly understand the purpose behind each part of the layout. Next is we have the wireframe with user flows. The wireframe with user flows illustrate the sequence of action that the user take to complete tasks within the system. They visualize navigation, decision points, and alternative paths, enabling teams to evaluate usability effectively. This method ensures that the design supports logical, efficient, and intuitive user experience. This wireframes illustrates the sequence of actions that the user may take in completing the task. Also, the steps such as the navigation step, decision points, or alternative path that available within the system. Also, this method helps the team to evaluate whether the user experience is logical, efficient, and easy to follow. Next is these wireframes can be displayed as slideshow, side-by-side layouts, or flowchart to show multiple steps clearly. They help stakeholders and developers anticipate potential bottlenecks or confusing transitions. By integrating user flow early, teams can optimize interaction patterns before high fidelity or interactive prototypes. Um, in this part naman po is we can show the different formats such as slideshow, side-by-side layouts, or flowchart, and their goal is to clearly show the multiple steps in a user journey. They help stakeholder and developers identify possible bottlenecks or problems that may confuse transition early on. By adding user flow in the early stage, teams can optimize interaction patterns before creating high fidelity or interactive prototype. And for this example, you can see the different mobile screens connected with arrows showing the users move from one screen to another. This provides a clear visualization of the user journey across the system.
So now, is we have the next type of wireframe is we have the click-through wireframes. So basically, interactive wireframes regulate real user behaviors such as taps, clicks, swipes, or pop-up interactions. They provide stakeholders with more realistic sense of how the system will respond to the user input. Followed by that, this allows early evaluation of usability, transitions, and functionality consistency. Really, this type of wireframe is basically you adding a real user behavior. For example, like tap, click, opening of the forms, and etc. Then, since this is a click-through wireframes, it provides a more realistic behavior regarding the wireframes. Then followed by that is it enables early evaluation of usability since the users or the wireframes can be testable by clicking it given by its name. Then followed by that is we have the next point is click-through wireframes help identify design issues before investigating in high-fidelity mockups or final development. Meaning that designing a click-through wireframes is you can show early the possible issues that can be given a solution in the early part of the designing or testing phase or in the final development. Then, they bridge the gap between static wireframes and full prototypes by eliminating navigation paths and interactions. Meaning, it's give a way to transition to from static wireframes to a fully functional prototype. Meaning that given by the click-through wireframes is you can see the following user real behavior actions that can be utilized in our prototype, which is the next stage in the testing phase. Testing phase which is the next step in wireframing. Then, using this approach saves time, reduces development errors, and improves the overall quality of the final product. Meaning that you can see in the click-through warfare the real user behaviors and the following function of the system, meaning that you can address it, you can suggest how to improve it, and etc. Then, also, it has the following examples in our presentation. This is the example of click-through wireframes. As you can see, there is an arrow that pointing to one another. For example, the arrow green or the arrow blue and the other colors are pointing to specific elements that pointing that once you click it, you can navigate to specific or certain web page or opening or you can scroll the wireframe.
So for conclusion, the fidelity levels guide designers in presenting ideas effectively, ranging from basic layouts to interactive prototypes. So different fidelities, which is the fidelity levels, which is the low, medium, or high. It helps the designer to show ideas clearly from simple sketches to detailed prototypes. It's depending on what they need to communicate. So for the second one is the each level serves a specific purpose, whether it is establishing structure, illustrating content, or clarifying interactions. So the low fidelity, it shows the structure, then the medium, it shows the content and layout, and the high fidelity, it shows the real interaction or the near final design. So for the third one is by selecting appropriate fidelity at each stage, teams can improve communication, identifying potential usability issues early, and produce a higher quality final product. Using the correct level at the right time, it helps team communicate better, find problems easily, and create a better final product.
And that's all. Thank you so much for listening.